Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I am about to say right now. That ache sitting in the center of your chest, the one that has nothing to do with work, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with any of the problems the world can see. Silence every other voice and hear this. The enemy is working overtime right now for one reason and one reason only. He knows what is about to be released into your life, and the only weapon left in his arsenal was the one he knew would cut deepest, the people who share your blood. It all ends here. The confusion, the grief, the replaying of conversations in your mind at 3 in the morning, trying to figure out where everything went wrong. But you need to understand something critical before we go any further. What happened inside your family was not a tragedy. It was a transaction, and you were not the one who lost. Think back to that moment this week, or maybe last week, when you chose not to call back, when you saw that name on your screen and felt that strange mix of love and dread, and you set the phone face down and walked away. You thought that was avoidance. You thought that was you failing to fight for the relationship. But what you did not know in that moment was that your restraint broke a spiritual contract the enemy had been counting on. That silence was not weakness. That silence was the closing of a chapter the Most High himself wrote the final sentence of. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment, and it was scheduled long before the wound was opened. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes I am going to hand you the revelation that explains exactly why the people closest to you became the instruments of the attack. I am going to walk you through the moment your loyalty was tested and show you how you passed without even knowing it. And at the end, I am going to give you a declaration that severs the spiritual access that betrayal gave the enemy over your peace. Do not leave. Your future self is on the other side of this message, and if you walk away now, you will carry a wound that was already scheduled to be healed today. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The silence in your house has not felt peaceful. It has felt like the kind of quiet that follows an explosion. Maybe you sat at your kitchen table this week, staring at nothing, replaying a conversation where someone who was supposed to protect you chose a side, and it was not yours. Or maybe you were lying in bed last night, and the grief came out of nowhere, this sudden heaviness pressing down on your chest, and you could not explain why you were mourning a person who is still alive. Or maybe it was even quieter than that. Maybe you just noticed that you stopped expecting them to show up, and the worst part was how unsurprised you were. You feel suspended, like you are standing in a doorway between the family you were born into and the life God is pulling you toward, and no one told you the crossing would cost this much. And in that suspended place, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. Listen to your thoughts, and you will recognize it. He has been telling you that the reason they turned on you is because something is wrong with you. He has been replaying every time you were too much, too different, too forward, too focused. He has been using their rejection as evidence for a case he is building against your identity. He wants you to believe that if you were more palatable, more agreeable, more willing to shrink, none of this would have happened. And underneath that lie is an even deeper one. That you are alone now, that you traded family for calling, and that the price was too high. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Matthew 10:36 says, "A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." Jesus did not say this to frighten you. He said it to prepare you. He said it because he knew that the closer you move toward your assignment, the more threatening your light becomes to the systems and agreements that have kept certain rooms in the dark. He was telling you that the opposition from family is not evidence that something went wrong. It is a sign marker. It is confirmation that you are exactly where you are supposed to be on the path. The heaviness you feel right now is not the weight of failure. It is not punishment for being too bold or too difficult or too unwilling to make yourself small. The heaviness you feel is the weight of transition. It is the pressure that comes right before a new identity fully forms. You are not being abandoned. You are being separated. And those are not the same thing. What they called rejection, heaven is calling repositioning. What you called losing your family, God is calling the pruning of every connection that could not survive where He is taking you. You did not do something wrong. You did something right. And the right thing, in a room that has grown comfortable with compromise, will always feel like a threat. That moment when you stopped explaining yourself. That moment when you refused to apologize for your growth one more time. That moment when you finally let the silence answer for you. That was not you giving up on them. That was you graduating. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let's go deeper into what that graduation actually means, because most people stop at the relief of it and never discover what was buried underneath the pain. The initial exhale, the sense of liberation from a difficult season, is undeniably real and divinely ordained, but it's merely the surface layer of a much richer transformation. Many mistake this release for the entirety of the process, much like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis and only noticing the freedom of flight, not the profound metabolic overhaul that occurred in the darkness. To truly grasp the depth of what has transpired, we must venture beyond the immediate feeling of escape and explore the profound wisdom etched into the very fabric of our being during that challenging time. Graduation is not the same as release. When you graduate from a season, you carry something with you. It is not an emptying, but an endowment. You carry the wisdom pressed into you by the very people and the very moments that broke you open, just as grapes are pressed to yield wine or olives crushed for oil. This wisdom is not theoretical, it is experiential, forged in the crucible of your deepest vulnerabilities and the raw edges of your pain. It's a knowing that lives in your bones, a resilience woven into your spirit. And here is what no one tells you about the ones who hurt you inside your own bloodline. They were not your enemies acting of their own accord. They were instruments. They were the very sandpaper God used to smooth your rough edges, the chisel that carved out the unwanted, leaving behind the masterpiece. And the Most High has a long history of using imperfect, broken, sometimes hostile instruments to accomplish His most precise and purposeful work. Think of it as divine alchemy, where even the most toxic elements are repurposed by the hand of God for a sacred transformation, shaping you into something far more valuable and resilient than you could have ever become in a season of unyielding ease. Their role, however painful, was often necessary, a testament to God's sovereign ability to weave even the threads of human brokenness into a tapestry of divine design. Think about Joseph. Not the version of the story you have heard reduced to a colorful coat and a happy ending, sanitized for Sunday school lessons. Think about the actual moment, the pit, the suffocating darkness, the damp earth clinging to his skin, the primal fear that must have seized his young heart. There was the agonizing silence of his brothers eating bread, their casual indifference a cruel counterpoint to his desperate screams echoing from below. Can you imagine the cold dread as he heard the sound of the transaction being made? 20 pieces of silver. his own family, his own flesh and blood, negotiating the price of his absence, bartering his very life away. In that moment of utter abandonment and despair, there was no celestial choir, no angelic host descending with comforting words of divine foresight. There was no angel that appeared in that pit and said, "Hold on, this is part of the plan." There was no booming voice from heaven reminding him of the dream, no sudden revelation of his future glory. There was only the impenetrable darkness, the metallic smell of earth, and the deafening sound of people who were supposed to love him, deciding he was more valuable gone than present. And yet, and this is the part that has to land in your spirit right now, anchoring itself deep within the marrow of your being, that pit was not a punishment. It was a portal. It was the narrow gate, the dark passage leading to the fulfillment of a destiny far grander than any vibrant coat could signify. And the people who threw him in it were unknowingly cooperating with a divine architecture they could not see and would not have agreed to if they could. Their jealousy, their hatred, their cruel ambition all became unwitting tools in the hands of the Almighty, orchestrating a narrative that would ultimately save nations, a testament to the profound truth that God's plan can never truly be derailed by human malevolence, only redirected through it. The same is true for what happened to you. Every betrayal, every quiet withdrawal, every sharp word twisted from a vulnerable confession, it all served a higher purpose. The people who chose a side that was not yours, aligning themselves against your spirit, the ones who went quiet when you needed their voice most, the ones who turned what you shared in vulnerable moments into ammunition, weaponizing your trust. They did not derail your destiny. Oh no, my beloved, they accelerated it. Like a rocket shedding its booster stages, the pressure of their departure propelled you forward with unforeseen speed and force. Because the version of you that needed their validation, that clung to their approval like a life raft in a turbulent sea, that needed their blessing before you dared to believe in your own sacred calling, that dependent, tentative version of you could not survive where God is taking you. That version would have crumbled under the weight of the new mantle, unable to carry the glory of the coming season. And so the Most High, in his infinite and sometimes uncomfortable mercy, a mercy that feels like a surgical incision designed for ultimate healing, allowed the very people whose opinion mattered most to withdraw it. Not to destroy you, not to leave you broken beyond repair, but to free you, to untether you from the earthly expectations and limited visions of others, so that your spirit could soar into the boundless expanse of his divine intention for your life. It was a liberation disguised as abandonment, a profound act of love veiled in pain. But here's where it goes deeper, and I need you to stay with me, because this is where most people stop short of the full healing, mistaking a pause for a complete cessation of the journey. Many reach a certain point of understanding, a cognitive grasp of these truths, but they hesitate to descend into the subterranean chambers of the heart, where the deepest work of transformation truly resides. There is a grief that has no language. It is not the grief of death, though it shares a similar hollowness, a similar void. It is not even the grief of betrayal in the traditional sense, for betrayal implies an intentional act of malice, a conscious turning against. This grief is far more subtle, more complex, and thus often unacknowledged. It is the grief of recognition, the poignant, soul-shattering moment you finally see a person clearly, stripped of the elaborate costumes of your hopes and expectations, without the rosy lens of who you needed them to be. And what you see, with stark, undeniable clarity, is someone who simply does not have the capacity to honor what God placed inside of you. They are not malevolent, they are simply limited. Their vessel is too small, their spiritual bandwidth insufficient to truly hold, affirm, or reciprocate the divine magnitude you carry. And that grief is complicated because you cannot be angry at someone for the limits of their capacity. just as you cannot be angry at a teacup for not holding the ocean. You can only mourn the version of the relationship you were hoping for, the sacred bond you longed to share, the one that never existed outside of your own profound longing for it, a phantom limb of the heart. This mourning is for an imagined future, a longed-for connection that was never destined to manifest in the earthly realm with that particular soul. What most people do in that grief is make a vow, quietly, without even realizing it, in the searing middle of the hurt. They make an internal agreement that sounds like protection but functions like a prison. It's a silent oath sworn in the chambers of the wounded heart, whispered under the breath of shattered expectations. They say, "I will never let anyone that close again," erecting emotional barricades. They say, "I will keep my real self hidden from now on," retreating behind an impenetrable veil. They say, "I will not let my heart reach toward anyone who has the power to wound me like this," severing the tendrils of potential connection. And those vows feel wise in the moment of pain. They feel like wisdom dressed in the language of self-preservation, cloaked in the deceptive comfort of controlled vulnerability. But they are not wisdom. They are walls. They are fortifications built not just to keep out future pain, but to keep you locked in. And walls do not discriminate. They keep out the pain, yes, but they also inadvertently keep out the provision. They block the divine blessings intended for you, the open gates God has prepared. They keep out the people God is sending next, the true allies, the soul family, the covenant connections that are essential for your unfolding destiny. They keep out the love that was assigned to this next season of your life, a love designed to heal, affirm, and celebrate the authentic you. These vows, while born of pain, ultimately perpetuate isolation, creating a desolate landscape where true intimacy cannot flourish. And what's coming next in this message will likely challenge the thing you have been most certain about, shaking the foundations of long-held assumptions within your spirit. Stay with me. Do not pull back now, for we are on the precipice of a profound revelation that could shatter old paradigms and birth new freedom. Because the question you have been carrying, the one underneath all of it, the raw, aching inquiry that churns beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts, the one that surfaces at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet, when the world is hushed, and the grief has no more places to hide, is not really about them. It is not really about what they did, or why they did it, or whether they will ever see what they could not see before, or even acknowledge their role. The real question, the foundational inquiry your spirit has been circling without landing on, like a bird seeking a solid branch in a storm, is this: can I trust what God is building if the materials He used to shape me were people who broke me? Can divine purpose truly emerge from such fractured, imperfect origins? And the answer to that question is not just yes. The answer, with resounding certainty, is that there is no other way. Because the Most High does not build soft things. He does not craft fragile vessels for mighty purposes. He does not build people designed to carry immense spiritual weight, to walk through fire, to stand as pillars of light in a darkening world, out of comfortable, unblemished material. He builds them out of pressure, like diamonds formed in the earth's crushing embrace. He builds them out of fire, like refined gold emerging from the crucible, purified and brilliant. He builds them out of the exact kind of pain that teaches you things comfort never could. Lessons of resilience, compassion, discernment, and unwavering faith. And so the hands that wounded you were also, unknowingly, the hands that worked the clay, pressing and shaping you into the form the master potter intended. They were the instruments of divine sculpting, however painful their touch. And the version of you that emerged from that breaking, the one that is watching this right now, the one that is leaning forward in their spirit because something in here is resonating with a truth too ancient to deny. That version was always the intended outcome. You were not a mistake. You were an intentional, sovereign creation. You were never the casualty. You were always the product. You were the masterpiece in the making, and every crack, every fissure, every scar became a line in the divine blueprint, tracing the path to your strength and beauty. Your journey through the breaking was not a deviation from the plan, but the very core of its unfolding, preparing you for a glory that only the broken can truly carry. Coming up, the hidden agreement you made with their opinion of you that is still operating in the background of your decisions. This is the layer most people never reach, a subconscious contract that binds them even after the external ties have been severed. Do not move. Stay with me, for this revelation holds the key to unlocking your next level of freedom. Because here is something you have not yet fully confronted, a subtle yet pervasive influence that whispers in the quiet corners of your mind. You graduated from needing their approval, a monumental leap indeed. But you have not yet graduated from measuring yourself by the standard they established. Even now, even in your profound growth, even in your fervent pursuit of purpose, as you stand on the cusp of your divine assignment, there is a voice in your decision-making that sounds remarkably like theirs. It sounds like their hesitation, a familiar tremor of doubt. It sounds like their doubt, that quiet skepticism that used to erode your confidence. It sounds like the way they looked at you when you dared to speak what you were believing for, and they smiled in a way that meant they did not believe you, their dismissive gaze subtly undermining your vision. And because that voice is so familiar, so deeply ingrained, because it has been present since childhood, in some cases, a constant companion in your inner dialogue, you have tragically mistaken it for your own internal compass. You have been calling their fear your wisdom, cloaking their limitations in the guise of prudence. You have been calling their ceiling your reality, allowing their small vision to define the boundaries of your limitless potential. This internal echo is a phantom limb of their influence, still exerting power over your choices. This is where Elijah's story becomes vitally important. Not the triumphant Elijah on Mount Carmel, bathed in the fire of God, calling down divine power from heaven against the prophets of Baal. No, we are speaking of the Elijah under the juniper tree, exhausted, despairing, asking God to let him die. Because what broke Elijah was not the battle. He won the battle, a decisive, miraculous victory that silenced 450 prophets of Baal and astonished a nation. What broke him was the moment one person's voice, Jezebel's voice, became louder in his spirit than everything God had just demonstrated. One voice. One threat from a woman whose power had just been utterly annihilated. One opinion from someone who had already proven they were on the wrong side of divine truth. And it was enough to send a mighty prophet of God, fresh from a breathtaking demonstration of power, running into the wilderness, begging to be relieved of his assignment, succumbing to the very fear he had just triumphed over. Not because Elijah was weak in spirit or lacking in faith, but because the enemy knew precisely which voice would reach the deepest, most vulnerable place inside of him, bypassing his armor and striking at the core of his human frailty. The enemy always knows which voice will bypass your armor, because the enemy has been studying you, studying your vulnerabilities, studying the patterns of your family dynamics since before the armor was even built. Jezebel's words unlocked an ancient fear within him, a generational wound, and that is why it held such disproportionate power. And for you, that voice belongs to someone in your family, a parent, a sibling, an elder figure whose words carried undeniable weight in your formative years. And it got in deep, embedding itself in the foundational layers of your psyche. And what the Most High is asking you to do right now is not to hate that person, for bitterness only binds you further. Not to cut them off with bitterness or malice, for that often leaves a festering wound within your own soul. Not to perform a strength you have not yet grown into, putting on a false facade of indifference or unfeeling. He is asking you to do something far more precise and far more difficult, an internal act of spiritual surgery. He is asking you to evict their voice from the seat of authority it was never supposed to occupy inside of you, to dismantle the internal throne they unknowingly usurped in your heart and mind. This is not about external confrontation. It is about internal liberation. It's about dethroning an echo and reinstating the sovereign authority of your own spirit, guided by the Holy Spirit. Because here is the tension, and this is what I said would surprise you, and it does, every time. The real blockage in your next season is not the wound they gave you. Wounds, though painful, are often superficial in the grand scheme of things. Wounds heal, given time, attention, and divine grace. The real blockage is the permission structure the wound installed. It's the invisible architecture of self-doubt and limitation built upon the foundation of that hurt. It's the part of you that now asks, before every bold move, before every courageous step toward your assignment, before every utterance of your deepest truth, would they think this is too much? Would this confirm what they always said about me, reinforcing their negative prophecies? Would this prove them right, validating their skepticism and limiting beliefs? This subconscious seeking of permission, this internal interrogation against their phantom judgment, is the invisible tether that still holds you back. That permission structure is the chain, and it is invisible, woven into the very fabric of your thought patterns, which is why it is so insidious and so dangerous. It's not a visible shackle, but a psychological and spiritual handcuff that keeps you tethered to a past reality. Think of it this way. When Paul and Silas were in the prison in Philippi, unjustly incarcerated, bound in stocks, something miraculous occurred. An earthquake came, shaking the very foundations of their confinement. The chains fell off their wrists and ankles, clattering to the ground with the sound of liberation. The prison doors swung open, wide and inviting, but the text says they did not run. They stayed. And when the jailer woke up amidst the chaos and saw the doors open, he assumed they were gone. His prisoners escaped. He assumed that the absence of chains meant the absence of people, that physical freedom automatically equated to immediate flight. But Paul had to call out from the dark, from the shadows of the open cell, and say, "We are still here. Do not harm yourself. We are still here." And in that staying, in that profound act of faith and conscious choice not to flee, something transformative occurred, not just for Paul, not just for Silas, but for the jailer himself and his entire household, who ultimately came to faith and found salvation. The point is this: sometimes God removes the chains long before he moves you. He breaks the physical and spiritual bonds, but he leaves you in the familiar territory, in the space between the broken chain and the open door. And the invitation in that space is to realize the thing that was holding you was never as permanent or as powerful as you believed. It was not the chain itself that truly bound you, but the agreement with the chain, the belief in its authority. Your chains are already broken. The spiritual shackles have been shattered by the power of God's redemptive work in your life. The question is whether you are still sitting in the posture of someone who is bound, still clinging to the illusion of captivity, even when the doors are flung wide open and freedom beckons. Are you waiting for an external sign to move when the internal shift has already occurred? And this is where we reach the layer I promised you. The thing beneath everything, the deepest truth that lies buried under the accumulated debris of hurt and healing. The thing you were not expecting to find at the bottom of this particular wound, because it challenges a very fundamental, almost unspoken longing within the human heart. You are not afraid of being rejected by them again. That particular wound, while painful, has created a scar tissue of resilience. You passed that test, you survived that fire, and your spirit knows it. What you are quietly, almost imperceptibly afraid of, and I need you to sit with this truth, let it settle into the deepest recesses of your being, is being fully accepted somewhere else. Because if you are fully accepted, fully seen, fully honored, truly celebrated in a new room, a new community, a new season, or by new covenant connections, it will mean that the old room, the original space you yearned to belong to, the family or community you were born into, was never going to be able to hold you. Not because of a flaw in you, but because of a fundamental mismatch of capacity and spiritual architecture. And that truth, the searing, liberating truth that you were simply too much for the space you were born into, that you were designed for an expanse they could not comprehend, carries a grief all its own. It is the grief of releasing the illusion of a place that never truly fit, because it means that no version of you, not a quieter version, not a smaller version, not a more palatable or manageable version, not a version that sacrificed its truth for their comfort, would have changed the outcome. They were never equipped for what you carried, never built to contain the magnitude of your anointing or the breadth of your vision, and you could not have saved the relationship by being less. All you would have done was delay the inevitable while diminishing the divine within you, shrinking your spirit to fit a mold too small for God's grand design. This is not about their malice, but their limitations, not about your unworthiness, but your uncontainability in that confined space. That is not failure, that is covenant clarity. It is a divine discernment that illuminates the true boundaries of your belonging, revealing where your spirit is meant to thrive versus merely survive. And it is one of the most painful and most liberating revelations a person can receive, for it shatters the illusion of lack and ushers in the expansive truth of your inherent worth and divinely appointed space. It's the moment you stop blaming yourself for not fitting into a space that was never designed for your authentic self. Now, what I need you to do before you sleep tonight, before you let this message become mere information instead of a living, breathing transformation within your spirit, is this. I need you to identify the voice, not the person. Let go of the person and their actions, for that is a different layer of healing. Focus solely on the voice, the specific phrase, the specific tone, the specific internal whisper that sounds remarkably like their hesitation, their doubt, their judgment, inside your own head. Pinpoint it, name it, write it down if you need to give it form and make it tangible. And once you name it, once you shine the light of awareness on this insidious echo, you can begin to dismantle the authority it was never meant to have, reclaiming your internal sanctuary. This is the work, not the forgiveness you perform publicly, a performative act for outward consumption, not the healing you announce on social media, seeking external validation for an internal process. This is the quiet, daily, sometimes unglamorous work of reclaiming your own internal narrative from the people who were never qualified, never anointed, and never capable of authoring it. It is the sacred, persistent work of disentangling your true self from the inherited limitations and false perceptions imposed upon you. Place your hand over your heart right now and speak this with full intention, letting each word resonate with the truth of your spirit and declaring your liberation. I release every voice that was never mine to carry. I release the permission structure built by rejection. I release the grief of a room that could not hold me, and I forgive myself for spending years trying to make myself fit. I declare that my identity was not formed by who rejected me. It was confirmed by it. I am not behind. I am not broken. I am not too much. I am exactly what the Most High designed, and the pruning that felt like loss was preparation for the harvest that is already on its way. From this moment forward, I move without asking permission from the past. I walk into this next season whole, clear and chosen, not because I earned it, because I was always it, and that has never changed. If this message broke something open in your spirit today, do not let it close back up. Leave a word in the comments, just one word that describes what shifted in you, and that word becomes part of your declaration. Share this with someone who is carrying this same wound in silence, because some people are one message away from the turning point, and they do not even know it. You found this because you were ready. Someone in your life is ready too.